What if your body was trying to tell you something, but you didn't know how to listen? What if the quiet signs, the ones we often ignore, were gently preparing us for something more final? In this video, we're going to explore 5 subtle but powerful signs that may indicate you're entering the final chapter of your life. Not to scare you, but to prepare you with wisdom, with love, and with peace. Welcome to Elderly Clever, where we gently guide you through the wisdom of aging, with compassion, clarity, and courage. Whether you're over 60 or someone caring for a loved one, this video will offer comfort and understanding in life's quiet moments. Let's begin. Sign number 1. A deep, unshakable fatigue that doesn't improve with rest. There's a kind of tiredness that sleep can't fix. A heaviness that doesn't just live in the muscles, but settles into the spirit. It's not the tiredness after a busy day. This is deeper, quieter. It's the body's way of saying, I'm slowing down now. Many people in the later stages of life begin to experience this, a fatigue that doesn't lift, no matter how much they rest. And for some, it may be one of the earliest signs that the final chapter of life has quietly begun. This isn't just sleepiness. It's a deeper kind of fatigue. Imagine waking up in the morning and still feeling like you haven't slept at all. Even the smallest tasks, like walking to the door, pouring a cup of tea, or flipping through a book, feel heavier than they used to. This isn't about age catching up with you. It's about the body slowly winding down, preparing for deep rest. As we grow older, our organs, the heart, the lungs, even our digestive system, start to lose strength. But when this slowdown turns into a constant, heavy fatigue that doesn't go away, even with sleep, it might be more than just aging. It may be your body's gentle way of preparing you for peace. The story of Mr. William from the UK. Let me tell you about Mr. William. He was 86, a retired train conductor from Yorkshire, England, known for his storytelling and daily walks to the park. But over time, he began to change. His daughter, Emily, noticed it first. "Dad just isn't himself anymore," she said. William stopped going to the bakery on Sundays. He sat in his armchair longer. And one morning, he quietly said, "Even getting dressed feels like too much today." That kind of exhaustion, not caused by illness, not cured by sleep, is the kind that comes when the body has simply had enough. And then there's Linda in the USA. Linda, a 79-year-old retired librarian from Michigan, had always loved her morning gardening. But now, she'd rather just sit by the window and watch the trees. She told her neighbor, "I feel tired in a way I can't explain. It's not just my legs, it's all of me." That's the kind of fatigue we're talking about. It's not laziness, it's not depression, it's the soul's quiet surrender. Emotional and spiritual fatigue. This tiredness doesn't just live in the body. It often affects the mind and heart too. You may lose interest in things you once loved. Conversations feel like effort. But don't blame yourself. This is part of the body's graceful way of letting go. There's no shame in slowing down. It's a sign of a life well lived, and a body that has carried you faithfully. What you can do. If you're feeling this kind of fatigue, speak with your doctor. Rule out causes like anemia or heart trouble. But if everything checks out, allow yourself to rest more. Prioritize comfort. Listen to calming music. Be around kind people. And if you're a caregiver, for someone like William or Linda, just be present. You don't always need to talk. Sometimes, holding a hand in silence is more powerful than any words. This type of fatigue isn't just the end. It's also a beginning, a new season of stillness. And in that stillness, there can be peace. Sign number 2. Withdrawing from people you love, without realizing it. There's a moment in life when connection begins to fade, not because of anger or sadness, but because the heart starts to prepare for silence. It happens slowly, quietly, and many times, the person going through it doesn't even notice. This is one of the most subtle signs that someone may be entering the final chapter of their life, a gentle withdrawal from the world and the people they love. When social energy fades. For most of our lives, we're surrounded by people. Family gatherings, friendly phone calls, neighbors stopping by for tea. But there may come a time when someone begins to quietly pull away. They don't answer messages right away. They sit quietly during family dinners. They don't laugh as much or talk as much. This isn't rudeness, it's not depression in every case. Sometimes it's simply the soul's way of turning inward, like a candle dimming before it goes out. Meet Margaret from London. Margaret was 82 and had always been the heart of her family. A retired nurse from London, she loved hosting Sunday dinners and chatting with her grandchildren. But one autumn, her daughter noticed something had changed. Margaret didn't come downstairs for tea. She skipped dinner with the family. And when she did join, she just listened, smiling gently, but saying very little. When asked if something was wrong, Margaret would simply say, "I'm fine, love, just a little tired." But this wasn't just physical exhaustion. It was emotional withdrawal, quiet, subtle, but steady. And James from Ohio. In the USA, James, an 80-year-old retired carpenter from Ohio, had always been a social soul. Every week, he played cards with friends, shared stories, and called his son every evening. But slowly, those calls became shorter. Then they stopped. He stopped joining the card group too. When a friend came to visit, James just said, "I don't feel like talking these days. It's nothing personal." And truly it wasn't. It was just time. The soul begins to need quiet more than conversation. Why this happens? As we near the later stages of life, the body slows, and so does the mind's desire for stimulation. Conversations may feel overwhelming. Social events that once brought joy now feel like noise. The heart turns inward, focusing more on memories and letting go. This withdrawal is often mistaken for loneliness or sadness, but in many cases it's neither. It's simply a natural, sacred shift, a gentle detachment from the world. How to respond with love. If you notice a loved one pulling away, don't pressure them to cheer up or get involved. Instead, meet them where they are. Sit beside them, share a quiet moment. Let them feel your presence, not your expectation. Sometimes the most healing thing you can say is, "I'm here whenever you need me." Withdrawing from people isn't a sign of rejection. It's a sign of readiness. A slow farewell. One that, if we recognize it, we can honor with love, understanding, and quiet grace. Sign number 3. Sudden clarity about life and regrets. Somewhere in the later years of life, there comes a moment of quiet clarity. It may arrive in a dream, during a walk, or even while sitting alone in a sunlit room. It's a moment when the past becomes clear, regrets come to the surface, and lessons, long buried, float gently to the top. This sudden clarity is one of the most profound signs that someone may be approaching the final chapter of life. It's not always painful. In fact, for many, it brings peace, a chance to reflect, to forgive, and to say, "I understand now." The mind becoming still and clear. Throughout life, our minds are full of tasks, responsibilities, and worries. But as life slows down, so does the noise. And in that stillness, the mind often begins to process old emotions that were too hard to face before. Regrets may rise, but so does understanding. The puzzle pieces of a lifetime start to fall into place. It's as if the soul is preparing for departure by cleaning up what's been left undone. Meet Mr. Harold from Manchester. Harold, an 83-year-old from Manchester, spent most of his life as a factory supervisor. A quiet man, known for keeping to himself. But during his last year, something changed. One day, he told his son, "I think I was too hard on you when you were young. I didn't know how to show love back then." That one sentence carried decades of silence. Suddenly, Harold began speaking more about his childhood, his mistakes, the moments he wished he could relive. His son later said, "It was like my dad finally opened a window that had been locked my whole life." And Helen from Oregon, Helen, 78, from a small town in Oregon, USA, had been battling heart issues for several years. One evening, while sitting with her granddaughter, she whispered, I wish I had traveled more. I always wanted to see Paris, but I kept putting it off. Then she smiled and added, "But I saw you grow up, and that was better than any city." That kind of clarity, raw, reflective, and full of grace, is common as people approach the end of life. It's not always regret. Sometimes it's peace for some. This clarity brings regret. For others, it brings gratitude. Many older adults begin to see the bigger picture, the reasons for their struggles, the blessings in disguise, the small things that truly mattered. This is often when people begin to apologize, forgive, or share long-held stories. These aren't signs of confusion, quite the opposite. They're signs of awakening, a soul making peace before saying goodbye. What you can do if your loved one starts opening up about the past. Don't interrupt, don't correct, just listen. These reflections aren't for debate. They're for release. They are a gift, not just for them, but for you. You may hear stories you've never heard. You may hear pain you didn't know they carried. Sit with it, honor it. Sometimes, just being a witness is the greatest act of love. Clarity in life's final chapter is not a burden. It's a blessing, a soft light that illuminates the path behind us and prepares the soul for the journey ahead. Sign number 4. A gentle peace that replaces fear. For much of life, the thought of death brings fear. Fear of the unknown, of pain, of leaving loved ones behind. But something remarkable happens when a person enters the final season of their life. The fear, the worry, the resistance begins to fade. And in its place there comes peace. Not a loud peace, not something they announce, but a quiet, steady calm that settles over them like a warm blanket. It's one of the most sacred signs that someone may be preparing to say goodbye, and doing so without fear. Peace doesn't always mean words. This peace often comes not through conversations, but through presence, a softening in the eyes, a slower pace in their speech, a gentle smile without explanation. It's as if they've made peace with life, with God, with the path ahead, and they are no longer afraid. For many, this peace arrives after a life of struggle. It can surprise family members who may expect fear or distress, but instead find serenity, a quiet acceptance. Meet George from Bristol. George, an 87-year-old retired engineer from Bristol, UK, had lived through the war, buried a son, and lost his wife to cancer. Life hadn't been easy, but in his final weeks, his daughter Claire noticed something unusual. He stopped asking about his medical results. He stopped worrying about money or the news. One evening, Claire sat by his bedside, tears in her eyes. George looked at her and said, "I'm okay, love. I've had a good run. I'm ready when God is." There were no dramatics, no fear, just peace, as if his soul had finally come to rest, even before his body had. And Rose from Texas. In Texas, Rose, a 76-year-old grandmother, had battled cancer bravely for years. Her family expected her to be anxious near the end, but instead, she became even more gentle. She listened more, spoke less, and spent hours sitting in her favorite chair, watching birds through the window. Her son asked her one day, "Mom, aren't you scared?" She smiled and replied, "I was, but not anymore. I feel like everything's going to be all right." That's the kind of peace we're speaking of, the kind that can't be forced. It just arrives. Why this peace? Peers, spiritual counselors, and doctors often note this shift. As the body prepares to let go, the soul often becomes more open to forgiveness, to faith, to letting go. The anxiety that once filled every moment dissolves. The person becomes more present, more still. They're not in a rush. They don't resist. They simply are. What you can do. If you see this peace in your loved one, don't try to change it. Don't awaken them with talk of fear or stress. Just join them in that peace. Sit with them. Hold their hand. Read to them. Listen to their silence. Because sometimes, silence is where the soul speaks loudest. When peace replaces fear, it's not an end, but a beginning. A graceful acceptance of the mystery that awaits us all. and perhaps a reminder that death isn't the opposite of life, but simply a part of it. Sign number 5. Feeling like you're not really here anymore. There comes a point, often late in life, when a person starts to feel like they're watching the world instead of living in it. They may sit in the same room as family, hear the laughter, smell the food, but feel distant, as if behind a thin veil. This quiet detachment from daily life isn't confusion. It's not always illness. It's often something deeper, a sense that the soul is slowly stepping away, not fully gone, but not fully here either. The fading of earthly attachment. For most of our lives, we're deeply connected to routines, meals, television, phone calls, birthdays. But when the final chapter approaches, some people begin to detach from these rhythms. They're still physically present, but emotionally and spiritually, they begin to drift. It's not a sign of giving up. It's a gentle loosening, a quiet preparation for a peaceful departure. Meet Dorothy from Birmingham. Dorothy, 88, a former school teacher from Birmingham, UK, had always been full of life. But during her last year, her granddaughter Lucy noticed something had changed. Dorothy would stare out the window for hours, barely reacting when someone spoke. When asked what she was thinking, she'd softly say, "Just remembering things. Some from long ago. Some I don't even know where they came from." She still smiled, still hugged, still whispered prayers before bed. But something about her presence had shifted. She was there, and yet somehow already moving beyond. And Thomas from Vermont. In the peaceful hills of Vermont, Thomas, a 79-year-old Vietnam veteran, began spending most of his days sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, barely speaking. His wife Anna brought him his favorite tea one afternoon and said, "You've been quiet today." He looked at her and replied, "I feel like I'm already halfway somewhere else, like I'm standing at the door, but not ready to knock just yet." That kind of presence, soft, detached, almost dreamy, is a sign many caregivers and hospice workers recognize. It's the soul beginning to prepare for the journey ahead. Not confusion, but transition. This experience is often mistaken for cognitive decline, but many times the person knows exactly who you are. They just don't feel the urgency to talk, plan, or even respond. They become reflective, spiritual, quiet. It's not always sadness. Sometimes it's calm, a peaceful shift from the external world to the internal one. How to be present with them. If your loved one seems distant, don't panic. Don't try to force them back into conversation. Instead, be there. Share space. Let the silence speak. Hold their hand, read aloud, play their favorite music. Even if they don't speak, they feel your presence. And in that stillness, something beautiful is happening. The soul is gently preparing to go home. To feel like you're not really here anymore isn't an ending. It's a quiet doorway, and those who walk through it often do so with grace, with memory, and with love. Let's honor that transition with kindness and with peace. Aging is not a disease. It's a sacred transition. And while none of us know the exact moment we'll leave this world, listening to the body, the mind, and the soul can help us prepare with dignity. If this video touched you or reminded you of someone you love, consider sharing it. And don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Clever, where wisdom lives and love never fades. Until next time, take care of your body, be kind to your heart, and listen closely to the silence. Sometimes it speaks.